Morning, Kuzo Zangpola. It means hello in Bhutanese language. Hope you're all keeping well and looking forward to our Himalayan and Hindu Kush series. I'm one of the travel specialists for these regions. Bhutan, a beautiful, landlocked, enigmatic kingdom nestled in the Himalayas. It may be small in terms of size as well as population, but it is big on everything unique. Bhutan opened up to tourists only in the mid 70s, and right from that time, the tourism authorities were aware of the environmental impact mass tourism could have on the country. They have done a great job from the start managing it by regulating the number of tourists visiting the country. Hence, Bhutan's culture remains undiluted and its strong identity stands out. Being the only carbon negative country in the world is no mean feat. This tiny kingdom has led the way, and today the world wants to emulate Bhutan's environmental success. The imposing Dzongs, they are fortress-like buildings you'll find everywhere, which are part monastery and part administrative offices. The colorful festivals and stunning scenery are a treat for all travelers. It's to be experienced, to be believed. So get yourselves there sooner rather than later. We are very pleased to present to you Mr. Jambay Dorji, our speaker today. He was born and raised in Trongsa in central Bhutan and manages Travel the Unknown's Bhutan operations. From a very young age, Jambay had a fascination for traveling and exploring. He joined the travel industry soon after graduating from Kalimpong University in West Bengal, India. In a career spanning over 2 decades, he has led various cultural and trekking trips around the country. As a nature lover and birthing enthusiast, he has traveled extensively and explored the remotest regions of Bhutan. Jambay is also an excellent archer, and whenever he gets a break from his busy work schedule, he is either off exploring or practicing the national sport, archery. As always, the presentation will be followed by a very quick overview of our tours and then the question answer round. We request you all to please keep your mics muted and videos off at all times. Please send us any questions through the chat box and we will take them up during the question answer round. Now it's time to turn the spotlight on Jambay. Over to you, Jambay.
Pola, and welcome all to Bhutan. Bhutan is officially known as the Kingdom of Bhutan. It is also known by the name of Drukyu, meaning the land of thunder dragon. In the early times, Bhutan got so many names like land of medicinal herbs, land of the southern foothills, land of cypress, and etc. Bhutan is a landlocked country in the eastern Himalayas, sandwiched between two giant countries, China in the north, and we have India in east, west, and south, governed by the principle of gross national happiness. Gross national happiness was introduced in Bhutan by the great K4, His Majesty the King Jigme Singye Wangchuk in the early 1970s. K4 is the father of the current king, and he was a very far-sighted leader, which he thought GNH is more important than the gross domestic product of the country. Tourism in Bhutan was introduced in the 1974, coinciding with the coronation of fourth king with a policy of high value, low volume. And it is also good to start this presentation with our New Year celebration called as Losar, which we just celebrated a few days back, and coming back, working into the daily routine of work. As mentioned before, China in the north and in the east, west, and south is all bordered with India. You can see in the map also, it is a very small, tiny, country sandwiched between these two giant countries. in the Indian subcontinent. Bhutan is formed by 20 different districts. We have Thimphu in the west. It's the capital of the country since early 1950s, and Punakha was the former capital before Thimphu became the capital of the country. And we have Paro, the Paro district in the west, which has the only international airport in the country. Of course, we have 3 domestic airports around the country, one in central Bhutan in a place called as Bumthang, and one domestic airport we have in the far east in Tashigang, and the other one is in Sarbang in the central south. So Bhutan is known to the outside world now as the last Shangri-La, and Drukpa Kaju being the country's sect of the Mahayana tradition, and the population of the country is approximately about 750,000, with the area covering of 38,394 square kilometer. It's almost the size of an Switzerland. And as mentioned before, Thimphu is the capital of the country, and the main revenue of the government, the main economy, is from the hydropower, because Bhutan, being the mountainous country, we have so many glaciers up in the north, forming so many rivers, which generates hydropower, and mainly this hydropower is exported to India, and from where we generate the highest revenue of the country. And tourism is the second highest revenue earner for the government, but tourism is the only economy which is earned in the hard currency. And we have agriculture. 2008, and since 2008 we became democratic constitutional monarchy, where the people chooses the government for their term of 5 years, which introduced in 2008, which has been as a blessing or a reward from the monarchs. And this time, or this year, we have the third government ruling the country, led by the Prime Minister, Dr. Lote Tsering, which leads the Druk Nyamrup Tsokpa in the parliament. The religion of the country has the maximum of the Buddhist followers. Almost 80% of the population follows the Buddhism, and then we have about 20% of Hindus, and then we have few Christians and Muslims. And the main currency of our country is called as Miltram, which is almost at par with the Indian rupees. Next, please. Here we have some of the country's profile, where we can see Bhutanese national dress, which is called as go, which we wear it up to the knee by the men and up to the ankle length, called as kira by the women. And our national animal is called as takin. Raven is the national bird. The flower, our blue poppy is the national flower. And our national flag is divided into 2 colors, where the yellow represents the secular, the king, and the orange represents the religion. And we have dragon in the middle, which represents the country's name. As I mentioned before, Bhutan is even known by the name of Drukyul, which means land of thunder dragon. And our national sport is archery. And as Sunita mentioned before, I also play archery, and apart from my office work, normal, busy schedule, whenever I get free time, I also go and play archery. Bhutan is connected mainly by the two airlines called as Bhutan Airline and the Druk Air, where we have daily 2 flights from Bangkok to Paro, Bhutan, and vice versa. And we have daily 1 or 2 flights from Delhi, Kathmandu, Kolkata in India. And we have twice a flight from Singapore. And we have twice a flight from Bagdogra and Guwahati in India. And we also have a flight sometimes from Mumbai and Bodh Gaya, but these are seasonal flights during the pilgrimage, mainly in the wintertime, where the Bhutanese travel to Bodh Gaya for the Buddhist pilgrimage. So these are the 2 airlines. And Bhutan is also connected from the south. One can visit where you can enter or exit from the southwest from a place called as Phintoling. That's the mostly used where the tourists, while they visit Sikkim and Darjeeling in India, and take over to visit Bhutan. And also we have entry from central south from a place called as Jelifu. And we also have exit and entry from the far southeast from a place called as Samdar Zonker. So this exit is mainly for the people who wants to visit some of the northeast states in India, Nagaland, and also we have a very famous park called as Kaziranga in India, which is almost near to Samdar Zonker and the Royal Manas Park. So these are the 3 main entrants by road from south through India. The highlight of tourism is mainly, you can see lots of snow-covered mountains in the north, where I mentioned before, hydropower is the main revenue generator for the government. And we have evergreen forest, as the country is now almost 73% of the land is covered by forests, where it mandates, even in the constitution, that 60% should be always remained as forest. And we have a picturesque, the Buddhist monasteries, towns, and fluttering of prayer flags all across the country while we travel and see different types of festivals. Festivals are mainly the Buddhist religious festivals, which is held mostly in the spring and in autumn around the country. And every monastery or temple, the Dzongs, holds festival once a year. Well, the advantage of visiting Bhutan as a tourism is, as mentioned before, Bhutan is governed by the principle of gross national happiness, and I'm sure you all might heard about it, that most of the countries around the world are also now trying to adapt this principle of gross national happiness, which was introduced in Bhutan by the great K4. And we have very rich in natural and cultural heritage, the last surviving refuge of the traditional Himalayas, ecological hotspot, and the only carbon negative country in the world. As mentioned before, 73% of the land is covered by forests, which mandates even in the constitution that 60% should be covered by forest. And English is widely spoken, as in all the schools we teach in the English medium, except our national language, Dzongkha. That is why English is widely spoken, so one will not have any problem, in connecting with the Bhutanese people. And it is also a very high safe destination to travel. And Bhutan, even the capital, does not have a traffic light. I think Thimphu is the only capital in the world without a traffic light. And we have the goal of becoming the 100% of organic, but unfortunately, it did not succeed with the aim of being 100% organic in 2020. But with the present government, they are aiming to fulfill it by 2023. And one of the most fascinating thing, what you see while visiting, while taking a flight to Bhutan, is you can see most of the high Himalayan, ranges. If you flew from Delhi or Kathmandu to Bhutan, then you can see the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, and other mountains are like Kanchenjunga in Sikkim in India, and we can also see some of the mountains in the northwest of Bhutan, Jomolhari, Jichidrake, and all. So this is one of the most fascinating thing what you can experience while flying to Bhutan. And also, we have the highest unclimbed mountain in the world, called as Kankar Pinsum, which is about 7,540 meter high. And Bhutan remained as a non-smoking country since 2008, but it doesn't mean that tourism and the tourists are not allowed to bring. You are allowed to bring 200 pieces of cigarettes and about 20 pieces of cigars, but upon arriving at the airport or by land, you have to declare that you have the cigarettes and pay 200% duty. So it's very open, you don't need to bring such receipt where you have to declare yourself and pay 200% duty as per the price what you have paid, and we have world classic hotels and resorts. We have different unique local experiences, and these are some of the advantage of tourism in Bhutan. Next, please. Some of the things what one can experience or see while visiting Bhutan is this colorful festivals, which is mainly held on the 10th day of every lunar month, and these are called as Techus. And you can see amazing architectures, different experiences you can have. See the different types of art and crafts, monasteries and temples, hanging of chilies. Chilies in Bhutan is used as a vegetable, and we have a very famous Bhutanese dish called as ema dati, which means ema means chili and dati means cheese. So this is the very Bhutanese famous dish in Bhutan. And as Bhutan is known by the grossness of happiness, you can see many happy faces around the country. And as mentioned before, the main revenue is from the mountains. You can see high Himalayan ranges covered by snow almost all year round, with more than 6,000 meter high and highest unclimbed mountain in the world. And some of the experiences, next please. Some of the experiences while visiting Bhutan, one can experience like rafting, mainly in Punakha River. And bird watching is one of the most fascinating in Bhutan, where we have almost 770 plus different species of birds and very interesting wildlife. But wildlife is like, it's only if you're lucky enough, then we can see uh, the, the 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 animals like tigers and leopards and etc. But uh, monkeys, different types of langus, these are mostly expected while you drive around the country. And one can also experience how to wear our national dress, called as Go and Kira. And also we can arrange different mountain biking and motorcycling. And as Bhutan being mountainous country, you can explore country by experiencing different types of treks and nature walks we have, where you can have a beautiful view over the valleys and the mountains as you travel. I mean, as you trek around the country. The trekking is mainly in the northern part, and we have the one of the most toughest trek in the world, called as Snowman Trek, which lasts for almost 25 days, starting in Paro in the west and which ends in central Bhutan in a place called as Bumthang. But also depending on the travel duration, one can shorten up where you can begin from Punakha and end it in Nikachu, in a place called as Nikachu, or end it in Bumthang. So depending on the travel duration, we can arrange this different tracks around the country. Next, please. Also, one can experience our national archery, national sport, archery, and also hot stone bath. This is our traditional way of taking bath, which our ancestors believe that one can, relieve your pains and other kinds of diseases, because our ancestors, they used to work hard manually in their fields, and by evening when they come home, they loved taking this hot stone bath, where they believe that it remedies, your pain for the working, where you have worked for the whole day. And also beautiful terrace fields, the green rice fields. One can also experience to see our traditional marks dances and cultural shows, and also experience the horse trekking we have in the valley called as Pobjika in the west, and in Bumthang in the central part. And we are the only company who runs this horse trekking in Bhutan. And also one can also experience the Bhutanese style of wedding if one is interested. It's very unique style of wedding. Next, please. And more experiences, like one can learn the astrological reading, Badalam offering, demonstration of how to cook Bhutanese dishes, arrange a lunch by the riverside, and how to host the prayer flags or do some meditation or yoga, which we can easily arrange as per the interest of the client, even in monasteries or in the hotels or in the mountains, wherever we find the very best spot to practice this yoga or meditation. As mentioned before, festivals are known as Techus, and it is mainly to honor, to celebrate the birth anniversary of the Guru Padmasambhava, which most Bhutanese know him by the name of Guru Rinpoche, and we believe him as the second Buddha in the Mahayana tradition, and where he visited Bhutan in the 8th century and blessed most part of the country. And this festival is mainly celebrated to honor his birth anniversary. and which is held in almost all the Dzongs or temples around the country. So as you see here, different names, Paro, Thimphu, Punakha, these are the different names of the different places. And festivals is held mostly in spring and in autumn. Of course, although we have few festivals held during the winter and in the summertime, but most famous festivals are held in spring. Paro Techu in the spring and Thimphu Techu in the autumn. The interest of the tourists, we have a very dramatic land architectures with the area covering of almost 38,394 square kilometer. As mentioned before, it's almost a size of Switzerland, and different places to visit or major tourist destinations. Next, please. Well, as mentioned before, we have 20 different districts, and Paro being the only place where we have the international airport that begins the journey of every tourist if you take a flight to Bhutan. And the most things what you can experience or see while you are in Paro is Taktang. Taktang Monastery is one of the main highlight of Bhutan, as you can see in the picture too. And this place was blessed in the 8th century by the Guru Rinpoche, where he meditated and left his body imprint, and it was built in the 17th century only. And this is one of the main highlights of visiting Bhutan for every tourist. And the other sites are like Kichulhakang. It is one of the first first Buddhist temple being built in the 7th century. Rimpung Dzong is a place where it is a center of administration and religion for the district. And we have the National Museum. We have Drugel Dzong, which is currently under renovation, but by 2023, we can visit this. And we have the Ha Valley in the extreme west, where we can visit Dzongdraka Gemba or visit traditional farmhouses, and Chilagomba, it's a nunnery, and beautiful Chelela Pass, where you can view Mount Jomolhari and Mount Chichidrake from there. And if you climb a little higher up, then you can also view Mount Kanchenjunga in Sikkim in India. So these are some of the main highlights where you can visit when you're in Paro. The next, we have Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, which has most things to see. Some of the main attractions, what you can visit in Thimphu are Trashishazong, the main, the throne room of the king, and also the the summer residence of the chief of abbot. Chief of abbot is known by the name called as Jekempo. So where the monastic body, where they spend 6 months of their summertime in Thimphu and then moves to Punakha to spend their winter time. And we have folk heritage museums, Simply Bhutan Museum, the National Library, and we have art and craft school where they teach 13 different types of traditional art and craft to the students. It is lucky for this present generation that the government have set up such kind of schools where the students with the interest of learning such art and craft can enroll themselves in such schools, where in the olden days such tradition, such arts were passed down, by heritage only. And we have Memorial Choten, Buddha Point, the Buddha, the statue which you can see on the left hand side, it's almost 54 meter tall, one of the most tallest Buddha statue in the world. and Changang Khalhakang Takin Preserve, where we have preserved Takin, our national animal, Semtoka Dzong, which is the oldest Dzong in the country. We have traditional medicine institute, handmade paper factory, the nunnery, and beautiful hike one can experience to visit Tangu and Cherry, which is an easy walk of about an hour each to the monastery, and then return another hour. And next, please, we have Punakha, the former capital of Bhutan before Thimphu became the capital, and crossing over beautiful Dorji Pass with 108 stupas around, where we can see most of the eastern Himalayan ranges, if the weather permits. And what we can see in Punakha are Punakha Dzong, Chimilhakang Temple, built in the 15th century, beautifully, picturesque located, Kamsum Yule Namgyal Choten, and we have nunnery, and we have Buddhist Institute in the place Nalanda, and further to the east after Punakha, we have Wangdi Phodrang district, and there we have one of the most beautiful glacial valley called as Pobjika, and where we can visit the very famous Gangte Monastery, which is located on the hilltop. And this is the valley where the black-necked cranes, the endangered bird, where they escape their harsh winter from Tibet and visit this valley, where they spend from late October until March, and then fly back to Tibetan Plateau. Next, please. And Trongsa, as Sunita mentioned, I'm from Trongsa. So this is my hometown, Trongsa, which has the longest Dzong in the country, Trongsa Dzong, built at different stages since 17th century, and the last part of the building was constructed by the first king, Wugin Wangchuk, in the late 1800. And we have Chingaraptan Palace and beautiful Tadzong. Tadzong is the watchtower, but now converted into museum. And Nepali style built Chendepchi Chorten. This is one of the two stupas of built in a Nepali style, built in Bhutan in the 18th century. So Trongsa is the centralmost part of the country. And next we have Bumthang, one of the most beautiful valley, and most people who visiting this valley, they even call this valley as a second to Switzerland. And this has many things to see. And some of the attractions, some of the sites, what you can see while you are in Bumthang is the Jakar Dzong, the whitebird Dzong, and the Jambay Lakhang. Jambay Lakhang is the temple built at the same time in the 7th century, at the same time with the Kichul Lakhang in Paro in the west. And Tamjing Monastery was built in the 15th century. We have a burning lake, but do not expect any the real burning lake. It was named as Burning Lake back in the 15th century, while one of the discovered treasure from that lake. And we have beautiful Khachu Monastery, Thangbi Monastery, and the Pesling Monastery. So these are some of the monasteries where you can access easily by a short hike. And it is one of the most beautiful valley in the country, where you can experience a lot of short hikes while you visit from one attractions to the another attractions. And the next, we go further to the eastern part of Bhutan in a place called as Mongar and Hlinsi. And here one can experience seeing Mongar Dzong, the Jambay Monastery, and the very famous Bhutanese textile, the silk weavers, comes from this valley called as Hlinsi in a village called as Khoma in the northeast of the country, where the most women of that village, where they spend their day weaving this famous silk textiles. And the next, we travel further to the east, the extreme eastern part of Bhutan. Next, please. This is the furthest eastern part of Bhutan, called as Trashigang and Trashiangsi in the northeast. And here you can visit a beautiful Gomkara temple or Trashigang Monastery located on the top of the hill. And Chotinkora, as I mentioned before, we have only two Nepali style built stupa. One is Chotinkora in the eastern part of Bhutan. And also now we can easy access to visit some of the remotest nomadic villages in the northeast of Bhutan in a place called as Merak and Sakten. But to visit these two villages, we have to use four-wheel drive cars, because at present it is just a farm road. So to travel safely, and we have to use this four-wheel car to visit and experience this nomadic the life of the people of Merak and Sakten in the northeast of Bhutan. Next, please. As mentioned before, we have the world's most luxury hotels and resorts, like international chain of hotels called as Amankora, and this hotel is located in all 5 valleys in Paro, Thimphu, Punakha, Gangte, and Bumthang. These are the main 5 valleys where most of the tourists visit, and we have this Aman in all these places. And the next, we also have 6 senses located in all these 5 valleys: Paro, Thimphu, Punakha, Bumthang, and Gangte. And some of the premium hotels we have is the Como, located in Paro in the west, and Punakha in the former capital of the country. And we also have the Taj by Tashi in Thimphu, and Gangte Lodge in Phobjikha, where it is the home for the black-neck cranes in the wintertime. And Bhutan Spirit Sanctuary, it's a wellness hotel where one can experience the meditations and etc. And we have Postcard Dewa in Thimphu. And the next, as Bhutan tourism have a set standard of daily tariff rates, which includes a minimum of 3-star hotels, and 3-star hotels are available in all the valleys, in all the places in the country. We have Olathang Eco Lodges in Paro, Mikmar, Lemon Tree in Thimphu, Hotel Finsuperi. So these are some of the 3-star hotels in the western part of Bhutan. And the next, We have the pictures of the other hotels, the minimum of 3-star hotels located in other parts of the country, in Punakha, in Mongar, to the further east, Punakha, Trashigang, and Samzongkar in the southeast. So these are some of the 3-star rated hotels where it is included in the minimum daily package. And these are the type of transport what we use for 1 or 2 person. We use this Hyundai type of vehicle called as Tucson and Santa Fe, and for 3 to 4 we use this Hyundai H1, and also we have the Toyota Hiace bus, which has accommodation of 3 to 4 people, and also we have a high roof one which can accommodate 5 to 6 clients. And if we have more than 6 people, then we have the Toyota Coaster buses, which has a capacity of 23-seater, but with this COVID pandemic, we will be using maybe for a maximum of 10 people in the bus. And yeah, so that's all. Thank you for your time, and Tashidale.
That was really amazing and very insightful, Jambay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this has definitely, kind of, I think, answered a lot of questions. We've had some along the way. So now I shall just share my screen and talk about some of the tours we offer and answer some of the questions then. Right. So coming on to the first tour, the Best of Bhutan, which is one of our most popular trips. Since Bhutan is a small country, a 15-day tour is good enough to do a detailed tour of the country. In this, you travel the breadth of Bhutan, starting from the eastern part of the country, going right up to the west. Now, this tour starts in India, in Guwahati. The reason for that is that you can do one-way journey by road, and that's also the best way to get to the eastern part of the country. Now, between the west and the east of Bhutan, the west is definitely more developed. So it's always a great idea to start from the more untouched rural areas and go on to the western parts of the country. And the only way to access it is taking the road journey and driving through India, going into Bhutan, and then traveling right till the west. You end in Paro. You either have the option of flying back from Paro into India or any other country and back home. Alternatively, you can also drive from Paro going into Darjeeling, spending some time there, getting back into Calcutta, and then flying. And since you already have a visa to start your tour in Guwahati, so should you have more time, this would definitely be recommended. Alternatively, there's a flight back from Paro. We run 2 trips in March as well as in November. The November trip has a fixed date every year because this covers the Black Neck Crane Festival, which is the only festival which takes place on the same date every year. The one in March also covers a festival, but then the dates for all other festivals vary, and we get to know them closer to the dates. So that's why we do not yet have dates for the March tour in 2022. And the one in 2021 will not be operated, so we do not have the dates here because the borders of the country are closed. Then we go on to the next trip, which is called Essential Bhutan, slightly shorter trip. This is one where you fly in and out of Paro. And you go up to the central part of the country to Bhutan. Now, this also, as with all Bhutan tours, we do try to factor in a local festival. So even if it's not, in fact, we kind of stay away from the major Paro and Thimphu festivals, which attract half the country's population and do get quite busy. It is quite interesting to see the local festivals, which are very, very similar, but more kind of personal and only attract people from the local area. So we do cover the local festivals here. Here again, we run 2 trips in spring as well as in autumn. And spring dates are not yet available because the festival dates are not there, but autumn trip is definitely there. But the autumn trip coincides with the Shine Festival in Nepal. Now, let me explain as we go on to the next tour, which is Essential Nepal and Bhutan. So this is a tour which starts in Kathmandu, and at the end of your Bhutan trip, you come back into Kathmandu. But the Bhutan portion is the same as the one we previously discussed, the Essential Bhutan. So Essential Bhutan is targeted at those who have visited Nepal or don't want to add, and their focus is just into going into Bhutan. Now, in this case, should you just want to go into Bhutan, fly in and out of Paro, you can fly into Delhi to take a flight from there, stay overnight at the Delhi Airport Hotel, which is within the airport building, and you do not have to exit the airport, in which case you do not need a visa for India. So you can actually do without the India visa, but both ways you're kind of stuck in the airport hotel within the airport, as you cannot leave that. But for those who do want to add Nepal and visit along with Bhutan, this is the ideal trip. At the start, you visit Kathmandu and the places around, then you go into Bhutan, you come back into Nepal, and then if you want to stay longer to visit the national parks or add in any hiking, then that is a possibility, and we can put it together as an extension to the trip. So here again, the trips are in autumn and spring. 14th October is the departure, which takes in the Dashain festival and is scheduled for this year, all going well, and the borders reopening. So those were our group trips, which can also be organized as private tours to travel at any time of the year. Now, this particular trip, Classic Bhutan and Assam Cruise, is a private tour. We do not have fixed dates for this because again, the cruise has limited capacity, and in case it fills out, it really doesn't work. It's best done as a private trip. Now in this, you can fly into Calcutta and then go into Bhutan to visit the three important places in the western part of the country, which constitute the cultural triangle in Bhutan. So it's a good introductory tour of Bhutan. Then you fly back into Guwahati, and from there you board the cruise, and then you visit on the 7-day trip. We've used the 7-day itinerary here because it's the most exciting. It takes you to the Kaziranga National Park, the temples at Sivsagar, the largest riverine island, Majuli. So it's a good mix of experiences. But it's not set in stone. Should you want to do a shorter cruise, there are 4-day cruises. Not as exciting because they focus mainly on the temples or other things. But if you want to mix experiences, then you can visit Bhutan. You can do a shorter cruise. You can go on into Northeast India, because there are other options. And we find that many people do like to combine some part of Northeast India along with Bhutan. The living root bridges being one of the most popular extensions people like to add, because from Guwahati, Shillong is a 3-hour drive, and from there you can actually visit the very unique root bridges. So, I mean, the options are plenty in and around Bhutan, and we can discuss them at length depending on the kind of itinerary you would like to do, but this is just to give you some information on what we offer. Now, going on to other information, as Jambay mentioned, some of it, they're 6 hours ahead of GMT, and there are no long-haul direct flights into Bhutan. So you fly via either India, Nepal, Singapore, or Bangkok. Visas are organized by us. So once you confirm a trip with us, we require your passport scans in color, and that is sent to the tourism authority there, who then issues the visa, but that is done much closer to the travel dates. Once we receive, we email it over to you. You need to print it out and take it along with your passport to the immigration when you arrive into Bhutan. Currency, again, as Jambay had mentioned, it's the Nultram. ATMs are very rare, so we do recommend carrying currency which can easily be changed in the banks. And the value is equal to the Indian rupee, so you know exactly how much you're likely to get when you change your currency. Typically, the best months to travel are March to May or September to November. And but if you are into photography and you don't mind the winter, you want to take some great pictures, then you might want to consider November to March, when the skies are absolutely clear and you can get lovely views of the snow-capped mountains. So now let's go on to the question answer round. Jambay, you'll have to unmute yourself and join us, please. We have the first question coming up for you. What would be the best places for birding and wildlife in Bhutan? And what is the wildlife you would expect to see?
Bhutan, as I mentioned before, being the country's land covered by forest, almost 73%, it has the most exotic places where you can do the birds, and mainly such birdings can be done in the western part of Bhutan, in the north side of Punakha, in a place called as Tashithang area, and in the central south in a place called as Tingtibi. And as you travel in the east, we have a beautiful place called as Namling, and further to the east in the place called as Orong or Morong. So these are the hotspot area where we can experience or see most of this the bird species in the country. And some of the wildlife where you can easily spot while you travel around the country are the langus. We have three different types of langus, called as capped langur, which we see in the eastern Bhutan, golden langur, which we see in the central south, and we have gray langur in the west. And we also can see some Assamese macaque and rhesus monkey in the east, and sambar, the deer or the barking deer. So these are some of the things, some of the wildlife which you can easily spot. But other wildlife like leopards or the Royal Bengal tiger, these are like kind of like you really need to have a lucky to spot. Yeah.
Very true. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, thank you. And Jambay, what would you say about the COVID situation? We know that Bhutan has, like, they closed their borders very early on and have managed it very, very well. And when do they plan to start the vaccination program? And when do you think then the borders are likely to open?
Since the first case detected in Bhutan last March in 2020, the government did a great job with having good knowledge, in the background of health by the Prime Minister himself, and also the health minister, the foreign ministers, and with the blessing and guidance by His Majesty the King. We have really done a great job in controlling this COVID, spreading in the country. So far, we have only 866 cases since March 2020, and out of it, 856 have recovered, and we have only 9 active cases at present, and only 1 death, but that also relates with he had some kidney, failure or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that records only 1 death in the country, and mostly this COVID is imported, where the Bhutanese residing outside Bhutan, where the government have let them come back to Bhutan, to protect themselves from such times.
Mm-hmm.
And these are mostly imported only. Only last December we have detected the positive cases in the cluster. And yeah, and I think we recently got about 150,000 of vaccines with the help of Indian government, and the plan of the government is probably like they're going to start vaccinating by March or April, and then maybe with the second dose in June or July, or maybe May or June.
Mm-hmm.
And most probably or likely that we are expecting to open tourism by this coming fall, maybe by August or September.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a newsletter just recently that, but it is not very sure that how it will come up, at the later stage. But at the moment, the Prime Minister mentioned that those tourists who visit Bhutan
Mhm.
have to show the vaccinated thing,
Okay. Yeah.
and also certificates, and also the certificate of showing negative COVID negative of at least 72 hours.
Right. Right. Okay, that could sometimes be a challenge because if you're flying in through India or something like, to add an extension, but maybe,
Mhm.
for that time being, anybody looking at adding an extension might have to do it post Bhutan. I guess that might
Yeah,
make more sense. And
yeah.
yeah, I think, and that vaccination certificate is going to be a requirement in many places. So I think,
Mhm.
let's go with that, bearing that in mind that it's
Yes, yes.
necessary.
Yeah, it's just a plans and preparation at the moment, but hopefully, maybe we may not need this vaccination certificate also at a later stage when the tourism begins.
Oh, yes. I think, going ahead another year or so, things might change. But in the initial days,
Yeah,
yes, definitely, because everybody has to safeguard. And knowing Bhutan, the caution which they exercise, which, makes us feel safe in the bargain, because, like we said, we know when we travel there that it is going to be one of the safest places
hmm
with the way they have managed it. So, what would you say about the food, Jambi? I mean, are there varieties for vegetarians?
yes, as I mentioned before, Bhutan is now trying to become 100% organic, which means one can experience a very organic, vegetables. And yes, one can experience different types of cuisines, international, the continental or Chinese or Indian or, Bhutanese, as per the interest of the individual travelers. And food is not really a issue, but sometimes it is also kind of like a monotonous, you know, but I always tell my clients that, food is not much important, while we travel Bhutan. It is more of a, one can experience the, and see how the Bhutanese, the live and how Bhutan is.
Absolutely, because food reflects a big part of the culture and everything.
Yeah.
But yes, with the, kind of buffet system everywhere, there is variety for everyone. While
Yes.
it may not be
Yes.
huge because the buffets are not lavish, but there's variety for everybody. So yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed was the food is always on the healthier side. It's not, because you all don't eat too much of either fried items or too sweet or anything. So it's very healthy. It's a very healthy diet.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Very quite healthy diet.
True. Thank you. A couple of questions that have come up here, which are more TTU related. So I'll just touch on those before we go on to the next one. There's one about currency, changing currency before traveling. That is not a possibility. It's a closed currency. You can only get it on arrival. And we do recommend that whatever you have left over, please do change it back before returning, because then it cannot be used or changed back anywhere else. Certain places do accept credit cards, Visa cards being more popular, but there are certain hotels and all which cover that. Um, and also about the visas, visas are organized for all clients traveling there, regardless of the nationality. It could be UK, US, they're organized for everyone. Then jump in, next question for you. What are the best months to see the blackneck cranes?
Uh, as I mentioned before, uh, black-necked cranes, they visit Bhutan during the winter time,
Mhm.
where they escape the harsh winter in Tibet. So mainly, one can easily spot this black-necked cranes from November to early March. So these are the best the months where you can easily spot the black-necked cranes in Pobjika Valley in the west, and we have and also we can spot in Bumtang and Bomdiling Wildlife Sanctuary in the northeast of Bhutan.
Northeast,
So these
okay.
are the main three habitats where these black-necked cranes come and spend their winter time.
Right. So this part, like, where I'm putting the cursor, because the festival happens, that is the time when you might be seeing most of them, I think, from November in
Yes.
the Punakha region and Phobjika Valley, and right up to the
Hmm.
northeastern part, you said.
Hmm. Yes, yes.
Brilliant. Uh, Again, I just see a general question about the type of hotels. Now, on organized trips, on organized group trips, we use the standard hotels, as Jambay showed. The other hotels are available at a supplement, but because of the fixed rate system of the government, the way they have managed it, the difference between the deluxe or the luxury hotels and the standard hotels can be quite steep. There is also one about, kind of idea of food and drink and what things cost, but it's a daily package system. So when you travel to Bhutan, what you are paying for is your transportation, driver, your 3 meals, your accommodation. So basically, it's only any personal expenses that you have that you spend for, or any purchases you want to make, or any tipping. But other than that, it's pretty much covered. And alcoholic beverages with meal would be charged extra. What are the temperatures like, Jambe, typically during spring and autumn time?
Uh, in the spring, the minimum would be of 15 degrees Celsius, and the highest would go up to 28, 29 degrees Celsius.
Right.
And similarly, in the autumn, uh, it goes up to 26, 7 degrees Celsius and come down to 10 degrees Celsius, like at night.
Right.
Yeah.
So it does, and from, I
O-
think, region to region, yeah, it's like,
Only, yeah, only in the winter, like from the month of December to February,
yeah,
then the maximum temperature would be like of 15 to 18 degrees Celsius.
yeah.
And at night, it can come down to minus 2, 3, or 5 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is,
But
yeah, I remember
at
even
night,
October time, when I was there, evening time, they would put on some fire
yeah,
at the fireplace because,
especially where in the evening when the wind blows, that makes the chill, that makes you feel cold. But the temperature wise, not so, it doesn't really go down. But yeah, the temperature goes down at night. So by the time at night means you're in the room. So
true.
unless one would like to experience the nightlife in Bhutan.
But I think once you get in there and then, like, spend a few days there, you just get accustomed to it. And
Yes,
then you're
yes,
kind of okay too.
yeah.
And what would you say, typically, how big are the hotels? Like, how many rooms? Um, like standard hotels or luxury hotels?
Uh, Most luxury hotels have very limited rooms of 8 to 20 rooms at the max. And like, of course, the luxury hotels like Taj or Le Méridien or Dusit, you know, they have 40 plus rooms.
Yeah.
But most of the standard hotels, the 3-star hotels, they have a room range from 20 rooms to 45 to 50 rooms.
Right. So all generally small. So, like, it's
Yeah.
never going to be too full of people, and the way they manage, I think, in
Yes.
the
Yes.
meals and
Yeah.
all that. And even the standard hotels, as we saw, what do you call them? The fireplaces, where they have this provision because they would turn it on in
Bukhari.
the evening. The room would be cool,
Bukhari.
warm.
Bukhari.
Bukhari, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, that was interesting because it's kind of covered in like a funnel, so you know the smoke would go out and not remain in the room.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This Bukhari came in Bhutan in the early 90s only.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Before that, in the countryside, the farmers they have to use the open, the stove.
But how about if somebody travels during the winter time and they do find it cold because, of course, the fire goes out after some time. Can they be provided with additional blowers and all for the room to keep
Oh
them?
yes, 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 yeah, yeah. They have additional blowers or heaters in the room. Yeah. So there's not to worry about the power disrupts. As I mentioned, Bhutan exports power to India. So
Yeah, exactly. That's true. And for hiking and camping, how do you organize it? Can it be organized even for a single traveler, like, meals, the setting of the tents, luggage transfer? How do you organize that?
yes, we can arrange such trekkings or campings from single person and above. And if one does the trekking, then all the goods are transported on horses
Right.
in the lower level elevation. But once you go higher up, if you do the snowman trek, then sometimes we use yaks as a transportation. And most of all the gears, their tents, their kitchen utensils, the luggage of the clients, everything will be carried by the horses or yaks, and only the day pack, what they need during the daytime,
Right. Yeah.
that can be carried by the individuals. Yeah.
Right. Another question we do get asked quite often, because the one thing that is quite well known is the number of stray dogs in Thimphu, and it's like something that at one particular time in the night they all start to bark, and then you can hear them around. But yeah, you don't feel threatened. But then is there presence of rabies, and do you recommend clients take a rabies vaccine before traveling?
Yeah, vaccine. I would also, I always recommend taking it. Although Bhutan government did a, significant effort in eliminating the rabies in the northern part, but we have a endemic in the southern Bhutan, you know, closer to the Indian border. So there's small chances of, getting the rabies. So it's always advisable to get rabies shot before visiting Bhutan.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. And what would you say about the altitude, Jambay? I mean, say this when you're traveling from the east to the west, or any of these cities where we have our clients stay, what is the altitude like? Could that cause a problem to clients?
Uh, Not really. Yeah. As you enter Bhutan by road, you would be at the 300 meters, about 250 to 300-meter above sea level.
Mhm.
And as you travel slowly, you'll not gain much, but maybe 2,000 meters above sea level. And yeah, not really a chances of getting the altitude sickness while you travel in the in the cars.
Right.
Yeah, unless you one does the trek, then we always recommend them
Yeah.
to stay at the same place, and acclimatize at least 2 to 3 nights, and then begin the trek.
Right. Yeah. And that's only for trekkers where you tend to go then beyond 3,000 meters and things, but not
Yes,
otherwise.
yes, yes,
Just some passes I remember, but then that's just a temporary drive going from one city
yes,
to the other, so that's not really something which triggers
yeah,
altitude sickness. So
yeah.
and since you mentioned the drive bit also, I think yeah, that's very important. There was another question. Yes, we do recommend driving into the country, because even if you are anyway flying via, when the clients travel there to fly via India, so might as well, like, kind of explore the northeastern part of the country, which is really, really very less explored. So many a times when you go to India, the focus is on the more touristy places or the touristic circuit. But it's a nice idea to kind of combine and see with Bhutan, traveling into Darjeeling and going into Paro, or returning, into Guwahati via Samdrup, which is in the south here, coming into India,
Hmm.
because you get to see the most spectacular scenery and also a very untouched part of both the countries. So it definitely adds to your experience and enhances it. Cost-wise, yes, adding that may cost you more, but then again, do bear in mind that the flights to Bhutan are not cheap because it's only the Bhutanese airlines which operate and it's none of the other airlines. The cost also is, tends to be higher. It is, they have the monopoly there, but very rightly so, because, there are ways of regulating people traveling, and this is one of those. But we do definitely recommend driving. And right. Now, a question on horses. I mean, does it cost anything extra if somebody wants to take a pony up to a certain point and to go to Tiger's Nest Monastery?
Yeah, it's just a small supplement, maybe
Right.
about $15 for a Tiger's Nest hike point.
Right. And they can only go up to the halfway point, but not come down on a pony, right?
Yeah, we do not recommend or suggest riding downhill because, which is not very safe to ride downhill.
Right,
Of course,
exactly.
one can also walk downhill easy than going up. Yeah. So, yeah, we do not really recommend riding downhill because of the own safety.
Right. And normally I mean, for somebody with a moderate level of fitness, we do recommend doing it gently because anyhow, there are those 750 plus steps at the end, which can't be done on the pony. So, you have to ultimately get there on
Yeah,
your own if you
absolutely.
want. Unless
Yeah.
there is a Guru Rinpoche now who actually can, make us all fly on the back of a tigress and get there, but we would need to. Yeah, I think walk gently. But how long would you recommend totally to go up, visit the monastery, and come back? For somebody
Uh,
to keep aside, time and
from the base up to the cafeteria, it takes about an hour walk. And then from the cafeteria to the Tiger's Nest Monastery, it is about an hour and a half. So total approximately 2.5 hour uphill.
2.5
And
hours.
yeah, and coming down, it's easy. So one can manage it in 2 hours approximately. So in total, it takes about 4.5 to 5 hours.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's the kind of time find.
Yeah.
And we normally, even on group trips, we kind of keep the rest of the day uh, free, or like, even if you're doing it on a private tour, just so that like, there's nothing too strenuous, do it in the morning and kind of take the afternoon easy, isn't it? Because it is one of the toughest treks in Bhutan, would you say? Jambay, I think, yeah, it's to do with the connectivity there. Anyhow, yeah, Tiger's Nest Monastery is definitely one of the toughest trekking treks in Bhutan. It is also like a must visit for everybody because that's kind of the iconic place. It is very, very sacred for all Bhutanese who make it a point to visit that at least once in their lifetime. And it is exciting for tourists too. But then, like, we do recommend not pushing yourself, only doing it up to the level you can, because at many places, from many places, you do get to see views. And as you go closer and closer, you get to see closer views. But if you're not able to manage till the end, then you can wait at the cafe or at some point for your group to return and go back with them. So, and I think that's all the questions we have. We've lost Jambay, I think, in the meantime. Maybe the bandwidth isn't good enough. So let's go on to our next slide. Our next two events are as shown here. And as you can see, we are heading westwards from the Himalayas towards the Hindu Kush region. Registration details for the next event and recordings of our previous events can all be found on our events page. And of course, a newsletter is going to be sent out once the registration link is set up. Thank you all once again for joining us, and thank you, Jambay, for a fabulous tour of Bhutan. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for part 2 of our Himalayan series, Nepal. Please note the early start time due to the time difference. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.